I'm Zachary Fowler, and you're watching our extra channel, and today we got a special guest, Andy Andrews. I've been listening to a couple of his books for a while now. Awesome author, and it's made a huge difference. They're like, I wouldn't say they're a motivational book or self-help book, but they really are, but they're not. And you'd have to listen to it to figure that out, because they're like super duper adventure books. They're fantasy, but they're truth in history. I mean, he really manages to combine everything that is amazing into one book and teach a lesson that can completely change your whole life and the way you look at things. So I didn't actually know I was gonna have this interview with him today. The guys, we had just listened to one of his recent books. We have a book club where we listen to something new each month, and then we discuss it to try to improve our working relationship, our business, and how we can make better videos for you guys. And the lesson of the last book was do something. Or at least that was just one of the lessons in the whole book. And so Grant took that to heart, and he reached out to Andy Andrews and said, hey, we've been having a book club listening to your books. And next thing I know, I'm getting a call from them, and they're like, yeah, this is Andy Andrews Associates. We would like to talk to you and have a Skype call later today. And I was like, I was thinking it was another thing, didn't know it was that thing. Unfortunately, I didn't say was like, who's Andy Andrews? Because I thought I was so convinced it was something else. I actually, I was like, okay, sure, yeah, what time? Do you want me in my in my office with the sweatshirts in the background and some junk on the table, or do you want the nice studio? And they're like, well, we'll air this later this week. I'm like, I had no idea until I came back out of the room, and they're like, how'd you like your surprise? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like and they explained to me the full scope of what's happened here. Now we're just about to get a call from Andy Andrews, and I'll introduce you to him, and you can get to know a little bit more about him and the wisdom that comes from a good author that I truly love. You guys have heard me mention him once before in the videos a little earlier on. I think right at the beginning of the year I mentioned listening to The Traveler's Gift and how amazing that has been for my life. It like kind of recognizing the fact it talks about 7 decisions. Can you tell us the 7 decisions?
Yeah. You know, it used to kill me to tell these 7 decisions, because I thought, you know, if I tell them, they sound so normal, and people are going to go, yeah, well, okay. But because until you understand the differences in them and the perspective in them, but the first one is the buck stops here. It's about responsibility. And then there is, I will seek wisdom. I'm a person of action. I will have a decided heart. I will choose to be happy. I will seek forgiveness. And what's the last one?
I will persist without exception.
Oh, persist without exception. There you go. I really going blank all of a sudden.
I still read them every day, and I've been working on the journal. And so for me, what I heard about all this because our pastor, Pastor Quentin, he preached a series of messages based on, he had read the 7 decisions, and diving into God's word about what does God say about each of these things, you know, and he expounded on them as far as scripture. And so I'm like, wow, this was such a good message. I was like, I want to go further with this. I'm going to go and read the book. And it took a month before I finally got it on Audible and listened to the book. And it kind of like blew my mind, because I feel like with my adventures and where I started from, and kind of my bigger life change of just kind of working the grind and doing all that I was doing before I went on History's Alone show and then went out and survived, I came back with that with so much more drive. And I recognized as I went in and looked at these 7 decisions that I was doing a certain amount of these, a certain amount of time, and missing some of these for big gaps in my life, and that's why I was suffering. Like, you know, for a certain period of time, I had a problem with a person, and I was struggling with forgiveness. And so, because I didn't forgive them, I was super crippled, and I ended up, like, kind of going into a funk, a little bit of a depression for a while, and like, coming back out of it, and I'm like, I will persist. And like, that day that I came out of that, I was walking down my trail, and I flipped open my pocket knife because I saw a bear in the woods. And I'm like, I'm going to persist. And I kind of like, I'm going to pursue life. I'm done with this being in a funk. And I started I'm going to go kill the bear, which would totally be illegal, right? But I was like, I'm sick of being depressed. I need to do something big to get myself out of this. I go charging off into the woods. It turned out to be a moose rump that was behind the bush. He was super startled. I was super startled. Fortunately, he ran off, and I was able to say, okay, maybe something a little bit more moderate as far as like taking a bite out of life, right? And so your book just super resonated. And since I read that, I think it was last fall, I've taken another level up kind of approach to it. And then recently I found the journal and I started going through the whole thing and for myself studying the scriptures and how those relate to my relationship with other people, with the Lord. And I've been getting up back again I get up at like 4:30 in the morning and spend 2 hours studying each day and reading and taking things a bit further. I've never lost that audiobook listening habit, but I've stopped listening to so many fantasy books now, and through your encouragement, I've been listening to a lot of, historical fictions or history books about, Lincoln and those guys all over again. And I've been going through all your books. I keep, like, they're such a treasure, each of your books. I kind of like save them for like a little bit, like if it's a special adventure, or I take my kids with me. They love the books too. And I listen to it. I listen to it when I want to listen to it with something special, and I'm like, well, the last one was pretty heady, that I listened to. I'm going to listen to something I really enjoy. And so we listened to one of your books.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. That makes me feel good knowing that you're sharing those with your family, and I appreciate that.
And that's led to us sharing them with the work team, and I actually give my guys a bonus once a month, and that's what led them to a surprise interview with you today, because they called and started this whole thing, and I answered the phone, and you guys called to have and then I'm like, what, who? And because I was thinking about something else, I had no idea what was going on until like an hour later, which was like only an hour ago. Totally blew my mind.
Yeah, Matt said, I don't know are we interviewing him or is he interviewing you? And I said, I don't know, and you didn't know either, so that was funny.
I love it. Great. It's because your team's so on board with actually like the same principles that you've imparted through your books. That they were like, hey, they saw an opportunity and they're like, let's do it. Let's nail it down and make it happen, right?
So awesome, yeah. Because life and opportunity and business, I've said many times, the greatest thing in my life is connecting people I love with people I love. And that's what our teams did. Our teams love us and they connected us with each other. And so here we are. And it's worked because I just got through interviewing you and we just said, hey, goodbye, hello. And we're doing the opposite thing now.
I like, they surprised me so much with this. I'm not sure what to even ask you next, but what do you got next coming up?
I've been working with a thing for the past several years called wisdomharbor.com, where it's a little bit of scratch off of what you do, I suppose, because Wisdom Harbor is 5 and 6 and 7 minute videos of things that people enjoy learning about and listening to and hearing and watching, and they're all over the map as far as content. We have them in Bet You Didn't Know. That Bet You Didn't Know goes with history and science and biology and How Do I doc. There's an audiobook doc. There's a holiday doc. It's all different kind of things. And we have contributors that are Grammy winners, comedians, writers, speakers, coaches, CEOs, chefs, that from all over the world that contribute these pieces to Wisdom Harbor. And I want to invite you aboard. I will, as soon as we get off the air here, I'm going to make you a lifetime member of Wisdom Harbor. It's a streaming service, and it's very inexpensive. It's going into schools all over the world, and it's like $27 per teacher per year for a school. And so they have access to all this stuff. And our stated goal is to bring about America's next greatest generation by creating conversations between adults and young people.
Wow, that sounds really cool. I'm in. Count me in for sure.
All right.
So what would you say to somebody? We've been sharing this with the team. We're all pretty encouraged every time we listen to one of your books, and then we sit down and we talk about it, and like, hey, what does that mean in light of what we're doing as a business? Like, how can we, utilize this knowledge to, for instance, the last one we just listened to, the Traveler Summit. How can we utilize this, like, to bless other people, to go further? How do we do something? And what does that mean to us? What would you say to somebody that's listening to your books and then they're like overwhelmed? They're like, I'm just me, and maybe I'm just not cut out for glory, and they get kind of overwhelmed by it all, and they take too much in from it because they overthink it. What would you tell them?
I can see how people get overwhelmed by, maybe I'm not cut out for glory or whatever, because we do tend to feel like maybe I've bitten off more than I can chew, or I don't know anybody who has ever experienced something like that. I don't know how to relate to it. But the one thing that you are, whoever you are, that you are cut out for is you are cut out for more. More. Now, that doesn't say how much more, but you are cut out for more. You're cut out for taking a larger chunk, a larger piece of the pie, a bigger bite. And life is about climbing uphill. And it's about purpose. And my son asked me, what's the greatest advice I've ever gotten? And the greatest advice I've ever gotten came from an old man. We call him the noticer. His name was Jones. And he told me one time when I was a young man, he said, you can't believe everything you think. And that kind of went over my head, but it was so odd that I really spent a lot of time unpacking it. And what that meant to me, the best way I can explain it is, have you ever known something? I mean, you knew it, and you could argue it, and you could win the argument. And then 6 months later, 12 months later, you found out, ooh, that was not exactly correct.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you've ever done that, does something you know now, does the possibility exist that something you know now, your information might not be correct? And you would go, well, Andy, of course, something I know now, my information might be incorrect. Okay, I agree. But we don't know what that is, do we? And we don't know how many subjects that may cover in our lives. And so when we look at it that way, knowing that we all want to accomplish to our potential, we all want to achieve to our potential, we tend to think that accomplishing to our potential, the biggest danger to that is something we don't know. It's something we're missing. But in effect, it's not something we're missing. The biggest danger to what you want to accomplish, the biggest danger to achieving your potential is what you know for sure. Because when you know something for sure, you're not veering off that topic. I mean, when you know something for sure, you're not searching anymore. You'll go somewhere else and look, but that you know for sure, and that's going to have to hold. Well, there are very few things that hold over time. There's a difference in what is true and what is the truth. So people who are successful are more liable to fall into the trap of what they know, locking them in and keeping them where they are. And so to be flexible to to not always believe everything you think. Okay, what comes with this? What's changes with time with this? And so it's a flexible example that illustrates how we should take our next bites. Looking, being open.
The banana.
Yeah.
Right. I loved that. We talked about that one in our book club there, and I read that one, and they had done a different book that month, but I shared that with them, and about peeling the banana from the other end. Everybody thinks that it's the handle at the top. That's how you snap it, and like when you said that, like people even cut it a little bit to get it started, and that's the hardest part. And then one guy did it the other way. And I've always been thankful to the Lord for that. Like, I have dyslexia because I feel like as difficult as reading is for me, I love books, But I feel like it's made me, with my dyslexia, look at things a different way all the time. I think that's why I was successful on Alone, and I've been successful. And then I see, too, like, when I'm not successful, I'm just like, okay, this is how things are done. This is the trend. This is what you do. You put the time in, you do the work, and you get the payout. But wait a minute. If I don't do it that way, if I do it my way, the way, or creatively, and I take a leap of effort and just go for it, we found some really neat things that have happened. I think when I noticed when I listen to your books, like things they're so simple. Like they seem like such a simple principle and stuff. And like at the end of the Traveler's Summit, and like it seems like the book's over, the answer was do something. But then it goes to the interview, and it talks about listening versus like, and I've always had this thing where it's like I would think it like there's one thing, like people tell me I know something. It drives me nuts when I'm in a conversation with somebody and they go yeah when you're talking to them, like I don't even think they mean to do it necessarily a lot of times, but at the same time I watch them say, I'm like, can you go and do this, and they're like yeah, and like I want it done like
skip
this.
Skip over.
I know what you're saying. And what you don't realize when you're saying yeah, and somebody's talking to you is you're missing out on a chance to learn something new and up your game, And
right.
It's like, yeah. So that we really appreciated your books. I don't know how many times I'm fanboying out right here myself because I can't wait to listen to the next one. I got one all planned out for our little trip to Vermont with my daughter. I'm finally going to take the plunge on what's the one with the submarine guys or
the Heartmender?
The Heartmender. Yeah, I know it's gonna.
Have you not listened to that yet?
No, I haven't dared to. Somebody told me about it and how it's gonna it's really gonna rip your heart out of your chest.
That's my favorite book that I have ever done.
I haven't dared to listen to it because I do tend to get like ever since Alone and surviving so much, and coming to a greater understanding of like my faith in the Lord and seeing, everything happen. Like my heart is so full when I hear a good story or a good true thing. I get right so wrapped up.
How old is your daughter?
She's 12, but she's a big reader and she loves stuff. She's gonna love it.
You guys are gonna love this together.
Okay.
And please, hey, call me when you're through with that. And Let me know what you think.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure I'm gonna love it. I just haven't dared to, like I said. Yeah, to take the emotional roller coaster.
I am excited about that.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you very much for your time. I'm so glad that you chose to choose the path of wisdom and share it with all of us and continue to pursue bringing us great stuff, like good stuff that out into the world with good stuff. So if you guys are listening on my channel, check out the link below for Andy Andrews, and definitely check them out on Audible. They're easy to listen to and the best books that I've found that I can recommend you to just start you on a journey of wisdom and knowledge and becoming and doing more with yourself. If you've been in a rut, this is a great way to start digging that, filling the rut in and making some traction and headway in your life. So thank you, Andy, for your time, and we'll see you guys all in the next one. Fowler out.
Thank you, buddy.
Oh, I almost forgot. We didn't mention this during our interview with him, that there is a video on his channel where he interviews me, which was super humbling. I did not expect that. So check that out, linked in the description below if you want to know more about Andy Andrews. There's a link down there for all of his books and his website. And yeah, I hope you check it out and fall down the rabbit hole like I did. Thanks for watching again. Fowler out.